page and on my personal profile. Okay, I guess we're live. Has it given that notification yet?
It's live. Says it on mine.
Oh, great! Yay! We're live.
Technical prowess.
Technical prowess. We are working on it. I guess. I'm
doing great.
Share. Oh my god. Okay, cool. There we go. All right. Okay, so I think we should all be set. I started getting like feedback because I was also listening to the stream as it was happening. But now it's all over and we're good. So, right. Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Laughing into the Void. I'm your host, Tom. And as always, co-hosting with me is the lovely Rosalind Paris. Before we get started, I just want to say, if you enjoy the stream, you can see our previous broadcasts on YouTube channel or listen to them on Spotify. And you can find all that information on our website at district-comedy.com. Joining us today is Virginia-based comedian Winston Hodges. If you're familiar with the comedy scene in the DMV area, you've probably encountered Winston at one point or another. He's been a stand-up for almost 6 years. Yes. And has also just produced his own special called Grieving Productively, which you can find on YouTube. Yeah. You can find information on that and his other projects at winstonhodges.com, right?
Yes, that's perfect. Everything's on that.
Great.
Instagram,
and
Twitter, all of it.
Yeah. And yeah, Twitter and Instagram also are at Winston H Comedy.
Yes.
And I think that's it. So welcome. Yay.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay. Feel like I have to like power through the first little speech and then we can just go back to talking like we were before. But I am kind of excited to get to know more about you. You're one of the first people that I met when I started like kind of doing online Zoom comedy, which for me, other than like 2 live open mics, are the only experience that I've ever had with
that's so crazy
stand-up.
That's so insane.
But so for people who don't know you though, how would you describe your sense of humor?
Oh man, just great. I'm great at comedy. That's what I would tell people. I don't know. I like I have a stupid bio that someone else wrote for me, and I'm not even gonna say what it says. I like making fun of everybody, but I don't like hurting people's feelings. It's kind of how I would describe my brand. I like to make fun of literally every group, but I don't like hurting people's feelings at all. It makes me feel really bad.
Oh my god!
So it's a laughing with kind of situation.
Yeah. Like laughing with, and there's a lot of crowd work involved in my material, and I do try to look at stuff in a different way than other people, but I like talking about all groups, even if I'm not a part of that group, in a way that isn't rude or mean, but like we can laugh together. But I do listen if someone's feelings are hurt, because it gives me anxiety.
Oh yeah, I like to think that I'm pretty successful at doing that myself, but mine comes from more of a place of just like I am very sensitive myself, so I just like I will not put other people in that position, or at least try not to. But that's good to know. But and this is probably pulled from that bio you said was written about you. But
because writing your own bio sucks.
Yeah,
it does suck.
It's so incredibly masturbatory, and it is so like, no matter what I say about myself, I just feel like such a douchebag. So I had a friend write it, and I was like, "This is good enough." Whatever. But I need to get like a new one written, for sure.
Well, it's nice to have friends that like think highly enough of you that you trust them to write a bio. Like I don't know too many people that I would trust with that, because they would just like totally try and fuck with me.
Hey.
Okay,
You know,
Roz could probably do it, but
the premier queer librarian online comic. Give it up for Tom.
It would be premiere. I don't think I've seen that anywhere else.
The queer premiere, dude. That's what it's.
Sprightly boy, good at miming. That's how I would start.
Yeah. It's a lot.
I screenshotted Tom doing a mime thing on a show because I didn't know him well at that point. And I was like, this dude is insane. I have an entire folder on my phone, crazy people on Zoom, and it's all you're in there, and like a couple other people that like I'm now friends with are in there. But it's just like I felt like there was way more experimental stuff going on when Zoom first started. And like your mime thing was it. I was like, this is legitimately insane. This is so crazy to see online. Are you talking about the one
from Comedy? Oh my God. So literally last night I was
like,
looking
what
back
the fuck
through...
is happening?
Well, I was looking back through like footage last night of my older sets because I'm trying to like piece together the good stuff. And I came across that one and I was just like,
it was cool. I just
why did nobody stop me from doing that? I thought it was so bad. I was cringing the whole time.
Well, I've never seen actual mime done outside of like when someone's a mime in a movie. So, so like I'm watching you do it, and I'm just like, oh, he is dressed like a mime. He is like, this is real. Like
you went full mime.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is funny. He's probably never done it before, and he was doing it, and I was like, this guy's done this a lot.
When Tom and I do improv, my favorite thing is to just like get him to the point in a scene where he can start acting like a mime because the audience always loves it, and it just comes out of left field. And it's always funny.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That would always like be a good like random thing to throw out.
Did you mime or improv first?
I'm improv first. So I actually started this is supposed to be an interview about you, but since you asked, I love talking.
Also, my brand of comedy is I immediately make it about other people because I think it's so fascinating and funny.
And I'll soak it up. But I started doing improv when I was like 15, and I think the following year I started like sneaking improv scenes at the local community college, which is where I met Roz. So me and Roz have actually been doing comedy together for like 13 years or so.
Yeah, something like I've known Tom.
Because I'm 28 now, so I guess
that's wild.
Yeah,
12 years, more than a decade. Yeah, that is scary.
Improv and then mime.
Yeah, well, the mime stuff.
What a journey.
That's
what a journey you've gone on. When did you discover yourself first as a mime or sexually as a bisexual man?
Both at the same time.
Dude, I figured the moment you signed up for mime, you're like, I probably should sleep with a few guys. really feel this out.
I'm wearing makeup. I'm like wearing tight-fitting clothing.
You felt at home.
Well, so that's the mime stuff though is actually because when I got out of college with my theater degree, I just kind of stuck with the first company that would cast me and stuff and pay me. And that ended up being a physical theater company called Sinetic, which is actually a great plug because we're doing a fundraiser soon. So keep an eye out for that, people. But they are immigrants from the country of Georgia. And basically their entire style is in like physical theater and mime and like very big like spectacle shows,
like classic clowning.
And they
interpretive dance kind of is it interpretive dance?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because so the artistic director comes from like a directing background, and then his wife is the like choreographer for the company, and she has like hardcore Russian ballet background, so she's like very well versed in all the things, and it's very interesting.
That sounds insane.
That's an episode for another day, but bringing it back to you.
Did you ever do children's theater, like traveling and doing theater at schools? Because you have the energy of someone that did that.
Yeah, I did. It was some of the most interesting gigs. I've had great experiences and bad experiences. And
I have the utmost respect for those actors because I taught at a school for autism, and every time they came to perform for our students, they powered through more interruptions than I've ever seen anyone power through. And I was like, this is hardcore theater. It's 4 people and they're all playing 3 different parts, and there's children screaming and throwing shit, and they're like, we're getting through this fucking Harriet Tubman musical that we have for some reason.
Well, I didn't know what it was about like the mime element, because of course like one of the kids shows that I've done was like a completely silent like mime thing.
Holy
And
shit.
what
I
was
would have
interesting,
hated that as a kid.
well, like the kids love it. They eat that up. And I
Oh.
think there's an element about like the fact that the performers are not talking, that they shut up and
That's
they're just like
interesting.
completely engaged the whole time. It's like, what? I gotta listen with my eyes? Better shut up, because otherwise I won't be able to focus.
That's crazy.
I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know how kids' brains works. But so tell us a little bit about your background. Again, based on that bio, I guess you grew up in a predominantly like Christian household.
Yeah, man. Super religious household
Uh-huh.
in Cartersville, Virginia, which is such a small place that like
Okay.
I went to high school and elementary school in Farmville, Virginia. So I would just tell people I'm from Farmville because there was like no point. Like that was the closest town.
I was about to say the bio on your website said Farmville, so I was like,
Yeah,
I can't tell if that's a joke. Like that's the real name of a town.
That is where I went to elementary, middle, and high school. So we were like 45 minutes from there, and we were an hour from Richmond. So we would go to Richmond to do everything. So like car rides, like stuff for shows. When people are like, "Oh, this gig's 2 hours away," I'm like, "That's nothing. That's what I drove to school every day." Are you kidding me? That's awesome. Hell yeah, we'll go in 2 hours. That's a nice little breezy drive. But yeah, Farmville, Virginia, super religious household, pretty big family, really close knit family. I'm still religious, but like not. I'm religious, but it's like I grew up in what you expect a Southern Baptist household to be.
Right. Yeah.
Are you the youngest? Or are you like the middle? Like
I'm the youngest. I'm the youngest in my family. It's just me and my older brother. Okay. He's like 7.5 years older than me, so he'll be 38 in January. I just turned 30 this year. But like my mom has four. I have to get this math right. She has 4 other siblings, and they all have children. So it was like, and they all live. So my mom and all her siblings lived really close to my grandma on her side. So the farthest aunt away from us was 40 minutes away. And so we would be doing family stuff all the time. So it's the type of thing where your first cousins are basically close to siblings because you would see them 2 or 3 times a week and having dinner at my grandma's house and going to church functions and stuff like that.
Aww.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of nice, but it also, I feel like a lot of people that perform are like in that younger middle kid kind of realm where they're like, I need attention.
Oh, and a big family, it's like, that's why I'm so loud. It's like I'm trying to be quiet now because I'm at my brother's house and my nieces are asleep, so I'm like not screaming. But like I'm generally really loud. I'm really boisterous. I love talking and hanging out and stuff, and like definitely trying to get attention and wanting to make people laugh and performing. Like I did theater in high school and stuff like that, so it's like anything I could to get attention. So
okay,
sure.
And then that kind of led pretty easily into doing stand-up. I mean,
yeah,
that's kind of, I feel like, the only mainstream performance style that is like so much focus on one person. I mean, you see like there's been more like storytelling shows popping up here and there. I feel like that's kind of been a trend, or at least was before everything shut down. And then like solo performance art.
Yeah, like that, and like singer-songwriters sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Like that.
I guess musicians.
Yeah, but even then though, like a singer-songwriter will sometimes have a backing band, or other people might write some of their songs. You know what I mean? Like it's or like you're someone like, you know, Sinatra, who's like has a huge band behind him, but he's just singing and stuff like that. But like, I don't know, stand-up feels like the premier one person, you write everything. And I'm a huge credit hog. I like writing my own jokes. I've never done improv. I've never really done sketch writing or anything like that, because none of it doesn't hit. Improv doesn't hit any of the reward centers in my brain that like stand-up does. Like all the stuff that all my friends say they love about improv are the things that I would be like, I get no joy from that at all. So it's not for me.
Yeah.
Well, improv is good because you've got backup on stage with you.
Yeah, I hate that. I don't want that
If the audience thinks you fucking suck, you can just be like, wow, Tom was having a really bad night tonight. Wasn't my fault at all, you know?
See, if I suck, I want it to either be my fault or I want to be furious at the audience. That is the two. That's
Yeah,
where I
sometimes
like
we
to
would do
float.
that on the True. Just
It's
get mad at
fun.
the audience. Yeah.
Yeah, that and like I didn't like the idea of not using a microphone. Like most improv I've seen is I don't like being in a room and there's a chance that someone in the audience can be louder than me. Like
Yeah.
that's like
That's fair.
Yeah, we've been there.
Yeah. And it's like
Definitely been there.
yeah, and I don't know. I like how aggressive stand-up can get. It can be confrontational, and it's like I don't like confrontation, but there are times where I'm like, I think secretly I probably like it a little bit. I'm like just enough. A little drama's good.
I don't know about that, but I am definitely drawn to like some of those same elements in stand up. Like I am really into the idea of being like completely self-sufficient with whatever performance style it is, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like that's what you're doing. You're your own writer, performer, producer, agent, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I feel like getting other people together to do improv and practice and like that and like being in a group and having one person in the group either not work as hard or not be as funny as I think they should be would infuriate me. I couldn't do it. Plus, I always chase the joke, and I know a lot of improv is not chasing the joke. I don't like setting other people up.
You want all the credit.
Yeah, I would tank scenes. I would absolutely say no to some of the suggestions. I'd be like, no, we're
It's
not.
like,
I'm
but
not yes
that's not
anding
funny.
this. Sorry, yeah.
Well, so you kind of do sort of do improv though, because like so for those of you who are watching / listening, Winston just put out a special called Grieving Productively.
Yeah.
And it's about the death of your father, which was how many years ago?
It was last year. It was
Last year.
Last year.
Pretty fresh.
Yeah.
But so you're kind of, I noticed in the special, you're kind of doing a lot of crowd work, which to me is improv on an even scarier level than just, like, because you don't know what they're saying and you're asking people pretty personal questions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in some ways, you are kind of doing a little.
Yeah, it's definitely improv. I think it's the team aspect and the paying for classes that I just don't like. But yeah, I totally understand that. Like I say, I don't do improv, and then I'll get on stage and I'll do an hour where it's just me talking to the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like the scariest type of
Why
improv
is
I
that?
can think of.
Why is that scarier to you than regular? Because I think because for me, like the reason improv is scary is it's some scenes it's just embarrassing, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but you're doing an embarrassing character or you're like really putting your, and to me doing crowd work and asking questions, I'm still me, and so it's not as scary to me. So what about crowd work is scary to you?
I think it depends on how you frame it in your mind, because when I think of crowd work versus improv, like improv is like my friends are up there, they got my back, and like, you know, whatever it is, we'll get through it together. And even though we joke about like blaming the other person after the show, really we all get together and blame the audience.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Crowd work, on the other hand, I feel like is scarier because it's like you're doing basically what's an improv scene, but the scene partner you have has like no performance experience probably and is most likely drunk.
Yeah, you're just carrying your team on your back. Yeah.
Yeah. But since Roz kind of brought it up, I'm gonna say that in addition to, you know, I guess your kind of southern-ish Christian root, big family background, and the not wanting to hurt other people's feelings rather.
Yeah.
Another theme, at least lately in your comedy, seems to be around the death of your father, because you have the Dead Dad comedy podcast as well as the special.
I do.
And that's not necessarily a topic most would gravitate to when
it's weird. It's like it's very therapeutic for me to do that. The special, that's done. I don't really have, I think I probably have 7 minutes of jokes about my dad passing away that I didn't put in that special because I didn't think they were ready, and it had been a year, and I'm like, I want this to be done. But in general, when I'm on stage, I'm not really talking about it unless I make a reference in a joke, just whatever, like a throwaway line. But the podcast has been helpful because I am big on I think you should try to be in as many different lanes as possible and then try to figure out what your lane is. And it's helpful for me because every other podcast I've ever done has been purely, this has to be funny. We're making jokes the whole time, being irreverent, being ridiculous. And then this was the first thing where it's like, it's going to be 50% sincere and asking real questions and learning and trying to deal with my loss and grief and trying to help other people. And then the other 50% is being like, death is really funny. And the only people that get how funny and like fucked up it is are people that have been through it. But loss and grief is such an isolating feeling that I feel like there's a perfect example where I was talking to somebody, Donna Steele, who's in DC, and she's originally from Richmond, and she does improv and stuff, and we did like a 2-part episode with her, and there was just this moment where she said something expecting no one to agree with it, and then I was like, oh my God, you're the first person I've ever heard say that. And there was just this moment, and I've had people reach out and be like, no one had ever said that before, and that's like how I feel. Like, I can't believe you asked that question. Like, and so it's been nice to divvy up everything and to be like, okay, so maybe my comedy game show is fun, but I also want to have this thing about actually helping other people so that I can like go to bed at night and feel good about myself. And then I'll just do a 30-minute set and I won't mention it at all. I like doing a bunch of different stuff. It keeps me from getting really bored because I get bored easily.
Yeah, I get that. But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's kind of the vibe that I got from Grieving Productively too, is that like death is like this thing that can feel very isolating, but like on the other side, it is something that like I think a lot more people experience than we realize.
And no one talks about it because you feel like you're not supposed to. So on that podcast, we were very honest and very raw about our feelings. We talked about people that made us mad when it happened, like weird grudges we held, like just weird. Like I mentioned it in the special, but it's like, it's insane to me that in the state of Virginia, to bury a body, you need a death certificate. Like, they will not put the body in the ground if you do not have the certificate. And I'm
if
just
the
like,
paperwork is not right, then rotting out in the open. Like, I'm just sorry.
But it's one of those things where it's like, he's in the box. I can certify that this man is dead. He's the certificate. Like,
yeah. Just like, how much proof do you need?
Yeah, but like that was such a small, really frustrating thing where we luckily had the death certificate and it wasn't an issue for us. But the fact that they told us you need a death certificate to bury the body means that someone in the past didn't get it and they refused to put someone's loved one in the ground. Like, that's what that means. It's like, that's why there's warning labels on shampoo, because some asshole just shoved it in their eyes.
I wonder if it's like a holdover from like the plague when they used to just bury whoever seemed dead and then just, like, sort the details out later.
Yeah, instead of tying like a bell to someone's toe underground, they're just like, so we should probably just get some paperwork.
We're all out of bells. We need a certificate.
Yeah, paper's cheaper.
Oh God. That being said, talking more about the special, but like more on the technical side of things, because you don't have like a formal background in film production. I thought that it was really, really good. So
thank you.
What did you find was like a particularly challenging aspect of just making the special?
Video editing is horse shit, and like, it sucks. And anything outside of a simple cut, you have to make the audio match. It's just so I didn't like that. Like, it's a 39-minute special, and I probably put at least 50 hours of editing in. So each minute was at least 1 hour of editing, and I would have done more, but I ran out of time, and I was like, this is it. Like, this, I gave myself a date because I knew if not, I'm someone that I would tinker on it forever and then never release it. But the video editing and like taking all the different sets and like editing it so that the sound still sounds natural, where it's like the setup is at the grave and then the next part is at a different set and just boom, boom, boom. And the only film background I have at all is I was a film minor in college, but it was no video production in that. It was a minor where I could watch movies.
Nice. Film club.
That's why I did it. I was like, this is a good minor. I like this. We'll watch watch some Westerns, but I just wanted to do something different. And I had the idea of, originally before COVID, the special was going to be just me, either in a comedy club or this rock venue back in Charlottesville called the Southern, which is like done a lot of shows with us, and it's like a really great comedy venue. And then COVID hit, and I was like, well, maybe COVID will only be a couple months, and I'll still be able to put it out at the 1 year anniversary, and that'll be fine. And then it looked like it wasn't going to let up forever. And then the next plan was like, I'm just going to perform it to my dad in the graveyard and maybe have an audience there. I was going to invite 10 people to the grave. And then I literally thought and was like, I think if I'm at the graveyard, it needs to just be me. I need to just be explaining the jokes like I'm having a conversation with my dad, because that was my first time being at the grave since he passed away. I hadn't gone back. And I was like, I'm going to go with the 1 year. And that was the 1 year anniversary of his passing. And I did it all there. And then after I did that, I was like, I booked a live show that I could headline. Zoom became an important part of my comedy life over this. And I would have been disingenuous to not do a Zoom headlining set and edit that into it. And then I'm luckily someone that records most of their sets on video anyway. I had several other sets, like including the night he was diagnosed. And then I was like, what can I do with all of these? And originally I thought I would just play each of them back to back to back. And I'm like, well, I don't want people hearing the same joke 3 or 4 times. Like, that's not what I want. I was like, maybe I can edit them together. And that was the most time consuming decision I've ever made in my life. But after I had done the first 5 minutes of it, I was like, I can't go back, because this is actually really cool. And this feels really good to do. So video editing or shit. If you have someone that will video edit for you, pay them money. Like, they deserve every penny they get if they're good at it. Because you could not. Yeah, I'm hopeful the next time I make a special, it's because someone's asking me to do it and they have a video editor who can take care of it.
Yeah, someone else putting the bill.
Yeah, for real.
Well, and it's interesting that you like kind of struggled with that, because I watched the special this morning, which was also really weirdly accurate to me, because my grandfather passed away about a year ago, and it's the first time we've had a big loss in my family. So it was kind of my first time dealing with death. And I felt like it was very effective to switch back. Like, you're not even really switching back just between gigs, but like different phases of grief, of the process. Yeah. And so I thought that was a really like unique spin that of felt very fresh.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I will say that it's like, I'm sure that I'm not the first person to do that, but I hadn't seen anyone do that before with a stand-up special. So I was like, as I'm doing it, I'm like, even if it sucks and isn't funny, at least people might be like, oh, it's unique. Like, they give me, I was like, there has to be a positive. So I'm glad that you enjoyed the going back and forth, because I felt like the way I was delivering the jokes was different, and you could tell there were some times where I was sadder than others, and just, I don't know. It was, and the cool thing is, outside of the Zoom set and the set where I'm like headlining outside at like the Cidery, the other ones were recorded without any intention of going in a special. So the other stuff was just naturally how I was feeling that day. And it felt good when I watched the finished product, and I've only watched it one time because I couldn't if you watch it so many times editing, it's like, but I had to watch it one time and be like, all right, let's see how this goes. And afterwards I was just like, this feels good. Like, I felt like I made a thing that was like worth making. So I'm glad that you enjoyed it. That makes me happy that you watched it. And I am sorry about your loss. That sucks.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. It was, it's kind of weird, because like humor is like one of the things that kind of gets you through something like that. Yeah. When they were like having the funeral, and like the minister from my grandmother's church is giving this speech, and they're lowering his coffin into the ground, he like fucking stole somebody's military funeral. Like, my grandfather was not a veteran. Like, he was an ROTC in college, and as they're lowering the coffin, we just hear like the gun, like the call and the bugle and the gunshots.
That's awesome.
And the ministers just look at each other, and they're like, do we keep going? Like, do we keep going? Like,
that sounds great.
And then finally they just went with it. And so my grandfather, literally his last act on earth was to fraudulently steal a fucking military funeral from somebody.
Amazing.
Oh, wow.
And everyone,
that's awesome.
like, it was great though, because everyone was laughing. Like, it was it was so absurd and funny that it was just like what we needed at the moment. Like laughing and crying at the same time is
that's
just,
like one of my favorite moments from like my dad's funeral, or like any funeral you go to where like everybody is so sad. And I think a good minister or a good pastor or a good reverend or good priest or whoever is giving it, hopefully it's someone that knew the loved one that was passing, had passed away. But like if they know them, there's always that moment where they're saying really sincere things, and then they will say one truthful, very funny thing about the person, and you can just hear people crying, and that's why I think laughter is so freaking powerful, is that it's like you can be having the worst day of your life, but if someone says something truly funny, you are bawling and you still can't be like, it's like, son of a bitch.
I'm trying to cry here.
Like it was great. Like when the pastor was we had two different ones speak at my dad's funeral, and the second one, the one that had been his pastor for like a really long time, and they didn't always see eye to eye on stuff, but they, he definitely cared about my dad a lot. And like they were talking, and his whole thing was he's saying this really nice thing, and then he just made a joke about, he's like, yep, and as we all know JB always would try to sell us a car, because my dad was a car salesman, and it destroyed. It just literally be like, no matter what, they would like, he was like, I think he said like, I think the saddest thing is JB, if he was here right now, he would be trying to sell each and every one of us a car. And that just like made everybody laugh. And my mom was like, yeah, that's what that's what dad would have done. But those moments are just so pure. And it was a challenge for me to try to do that with stand-up. But it's like, it's been really cool. I've gotten a lot of really good feedback on the podcast, and that to the point where it's made me feel like I've grown as a comedian, and I've grown as an artist and a performer and stuff like that. So
yeah, we should just talk about death all the time.
Oh, yeah, I'm about it.
Just checking in on the chat real quick. We do have Chino De Leon saying, Winston motherfucking Hodges. That was towards the top.
Nice.
And then someone saying, hi, Tom. So that's great.
It popped up next to your face, though. It did.
I know. Oh, my God. I was so nervous about that. I was throwing new stuff in last time with Brooks. It was like, we're just doing a Zoom call, and we're going to stream it. I'm not going to try.
It's okay.
Now I'm being a little adventurous, but
I like it.
Thanks.
This was our soft landing.
Yeah.
Because we knew he was in our improv troupe, so we knew we could be him.
Yeah, we're all in a little improv mafia together. But,
really? Oh my God, improv mafia sounds unbearable.
That
sounds awful. I'm not gonna lie. Oh my God, that's so funny.
But before we like completely move on from grieving productively, kind of transitioning out of that, since you did mention, everything with the pandemic, and in your special, you are doing clips both like from these virtual Zoom mics and from these live venues. So one, it's like, what's it like in the real world right now with like doing stand up in these open venues? And I think there's like, I don't know if you've specifically done them, but I think I've heard about like people doing these like open mics that are like drive-in movies on a stage.
I haven't done a drive-in one yet, but I had some friends who do the drive-in ones, and they say it's very different it's all about adjusting your expectations. So it's like when COVID started, I only had what I thought, like every time an outdoor show would happen, it would be like, shit, this is outdoors, this is gonna suck. Like, oh, the sound and the laughter is going to escape. It would be like a bad show. And then COVID started, and the only thing that was available was freaking Zoom. And so I adjusted my expectations. I learned what a good set on Zoom felt like, as opposed to what a good set in real life feels like. And then you do the same thing for outdoors, and the same thing, I guess, for the drive-in. Is it's just you have to like change your brain. I think when stuff opens back up and it gets to like for real, I think the first really good set I have that's similar to the way it used to be, I might just like, my head might explode. Like, I don't think I'm going to be able to handle the amount of joy that I'm going to feel from that. But the real world's fine. I'm as safe as I can be. I wear a mask everywhere, bring my own microphone, wash my hands, use hand sanitizer, and I leave as soon as I perform. So that's all that I can do. But there's some venues that don't feel the safest. But when you're making money doing stand-up, you kind of have to I'm at the
Do what
mercy
you
of.
can.
Yeah.
But you make money from stand-up?
Oh yeah, it's all I do right now. We'll be looking for another job, but I just moved to
Ooh.
DC. So when I moved to DC, I quit my teaching job because I thought it was going to be remote for much longer, and then they went back to in person, and I was like, well, I'm not commuting back to Richmond as much as I love my kids, so I stopped. I had savings and between stand up, and then I'm doing some other stuff with nonprofits, trying to like bring Dead Dad and Grieving Productively to different nonprofit settings to kind of do that. So fingers crossed on that, because it might be performance might end up being my full-time job. Oh my God. So we'll see. So
That'd be pretty cool.
We'll see. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. My dad dying, absolute best thing that could have happened to my career. So
I did not know that
one
you'd said
final
that before.
gift. One final gift from my father.
Oh my God.
Passing the torch on.
Yeah, he would. Oh man, that's the cool thing. I have no guilt about any dead dad jokes because he was the single most supportive person in my comedy. He went to a bunch of shows, even though he doesn't like the dirtier shows. He got on stage with me once. He was really supportive. He loved what I did. So it's like it's really cool to be able to like make those jokes, have no guilt, and know that he's also like he would be proud of the special, and I know he'd be super proud of the podcast and like helping other people. So it's I don't know. It makes me feel really good to talk about. So.
Well, especially too if he was a used car salesman, he probably respects the hustle a little bit too.
Dude, there is nobody that could sell a car like my dad could on earth. So when he passed away, he was the type of salesman that like his customers were his friends. So like he would, if you were looking for a certain type of car and he didn't have it, but it came in 10 years later, he would call you and be like, hey, we got this car in. I know it's been 10 years. Are you still looking for it? He would send cards to people, buy them Christmas gifts, call them every few months if he hadn't heard from them, go to customers' funerals, like he would do that thing and when he passed away, his visitation was supposed to be like 2.5, 3 hours. And we had to extend it for like 6 because 1,600 people came to my father's visitation. And I would say 1,200 of the 1,600 were people that he had met through the automobile industry and were his customers. And we talked to the dealership where he worked at every time I go in there to get my car serviced. And they're just like, it's been over a year, and they're just like, yeah, another one of your dad's customers came in, and we had to tell him that he had passed away. It's just people that had no clue and no idea. So, but you're right. He loved the hustle because he hustled more than anything else. He was a hustler.
Yeah. And it's definitely a hustler situation. Like independent contracting of, I guess, any kind is hard,
stressful.
but especially in the arts and the performing arts. But like going back to the whole Zoom thing, because you actually had a Facebook post recently that got a lot of, at least compared to like the stuff I normally write, got a lot of attention. I believe, like, and please correct me if I'm wrong in like kind of summarizing it, you're kind of not quite defending like Zoom mics and stuff, but like recommended them as an alternative for like doing stuff in real life if you're not feeling safe. So if you wanted to expand on those thoughts a little bit for those of us watching who might not read all of your posts.
It's just like, I got so tired of like half the posts on my Facebook from comedians are people saying they'll never do Zoom shows. They're stupid. You can't get anything from them. They're dumb. Or they're saying comedy's dead. And the other half are like Zoom comedians being like, it's the best thing that's ever happened. And I'm just like, it's neither. Like it is, like it's in the middle. And it's like, if I have friends that don't want to do it, fine. I totally understand it. But like the complaints I was hearing, I was just like, it's great for networking. It's better. People that are saying it's worse than not doing anything were the people that I kind of wrote that post for. And it's just like, it's not,
Unfriend.
It's better than nothing. And I've gotten to do a lot more podcasts. I've gotten to meet a bunch of cool people, like including you. You know what I mean? Like I don't think I would have gotten to know you if I wasn't doing the online things. Or if I did, it would be when this opens back up and just in passing through doing comedy, like, you know, in real life. But it's like, I've met a bunch of cool people, and I've pretty much written an entire new 45 minutes of stand-up that I've tried at in-person shows, but I wouldn't have written those jokes and been able to get them to the point that they're at if I hadn't been doing Zoom shows. So it's basically just like I got tired of people saying it's the worst thing and people saying it's the best thing, when it's just like it's fine and it can be productive if you're willing to put the work in. And people that were saying, I don't want to do comedy to just a bunch of comedians. And I'm just like, that was what a third of open mics was anyway.
Yeah.
The only difference is I don't know these people, so they might laugh.
And the drinks are cheaper.
Yeah, the drinks are cheaper. It's
The
like,
drinks are a lot cheaper.
that's fair. But I've enjoyed it. It's helped me because I'm like I'm an extreme extrovert, and that I do get all of my energy from other people. So it's like I don't need to be alone to recharge. Like when I'm alone, it actually like really runs me down. So quarantine was really hard for me, and Zoom helped me out and just dealing with a lot of stuff that I was going through, and it's just been really helpful to like get some of that energy back that I was missing. But it's not the same as in-person shows. In-person
No.
shows are a million times better, and it's not close, but it's like they're not even in the same ballpark. But Zoom's still fun. I've met some cool people on Zoom, so I like it.
I mean, especially if you're the sort of person who actually enjoys crowd work,
Yeah.
as opposed to
Yeah.
me. But yeah, no, I mean, for me, I think it was like, it'd probably been years, I mean, other than the improv stuff, or like if the play that I was in happened to be comedic, that I'd actually sat down and do any comedy writing.
Yeah.
So this whole like quarantine thing, and then discovering the Zoom open mics, it's definitely like a way to recharge that thing, which I had enjoyed for a while, but had just gotten out of the habit of doing. But so that's cool. Awesome. And I also like the way you describe it as like, it is kind of this in-between thing. I think this like Zoom comedy is like comedy limbo, especially with like the indefinite nature of like knowing when to look.
If you approach Zoom comedy like it is in real life comedy, you're going to hate it. You're going to be miserable. You're not going to get anything back from it. But if you approach it like I did, which is just like, well, I generally write on stage. Like I have an idea and I get on stage and I'll riff about it and I'll talk to the crowd, and that's where the jokes come from. But COVID's made it so it's like, all right, well, now I have to have an idea and at least kind of write it out. So it's made me sit down and be a little bit better with my time. And like I said, networking and just keeping creative muscles in my brain working. So approaching it like that is great. It's super fun. But I totally get where if you can't put yourself in that mindset and you purely only do stand-up, like because I need that fix from being in front of a crowd, then you should not do Zoom comedy. You're going to hate it, and it's going to make you miserable, and it's going to make you quit stand-up.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. But so obviously, you know, open theaters, as we've been talking about, is still kind of up in the air when that's gonna start getting back to normal. But I am curious, what's next on the roster for you? What are your plans coming up? What's the next step for Winston H Comedy?
Probably pitching some stuff to some more nonprofits, trying to get that to work. And I think the next step is like using the next year to try to get an agent, whether it's a college agent or just a regular agent, and just trying to see if I can take the skills that I have and see if I can make that jump to being full-time performance, and not full-time performance just because I'm unemployed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Actually,
those are very
sustaining.
different categories. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not the same. I want to be gainfully employed doing performance, but it's just I'm going to send some tapes to some college agents, and I'm going to send some tapes to some regular agents and see if they bite, and try to get some write-ups on my special and get people to share it, and keep pitching the things that I've been pitching and working with this nonprofit to try to expand that into where my day job might be doing something with grieving productively with nonprofits. And then at night I can still do as many shows as I want to. But the COVID has really reaffirmed that stand-up is what I want to do. And I think I'm good enough to do it and it be my job. And like, I actually make something of myself doing it. And with this, I don't want to have another lost year, even though I don't think this was a lost year, but like, that's what a lot of people are viewing it. And I just want to see if I can parlay that and make some moves and just take that next step that I think that I need to take creatively and financially. So that's the move. So we'll see how it happens.
Yeah. Well, and I think you make a good point too. Like, it also is so much of a job outside of like, you can be the funniest person in the world,
Yeah,
but
and it doesn't
for
matter.
comedy, it doesn't matter if you can't network.
It doesn't
Learn how to
matter.
use a hashtag.
Yeah, be likable and apologize when you make mistakes. That's probably the biggest thing. I'm just trying to be a better person because everybody, has their moments. But just be nice when you can and try to help other people and also try to be funny. Being funny should be important, but you're right. It doesn't. If you can't network and you're the funniest person in the world, your trip to the top is going to take a lot longer because it is.
Yeah.
If people don't like working with you, they're not gonna. You're gonna have a hard time.
Canceled. That's what the kids are saying now.
Yeah, cancel. Yeah,
the kids. And then we may have a little bit of extra time just to kind of shoot the shit, but I also thought it would be fun to start ending the episodes by asking guests a random question. And this one happened to be perfectly in the theme of tomorrow being Thanksgiving. So I'll ask you, for what in your life do you feel most grateful?
Oh, man. Most of my life, I think that I am very grateful that I grew up in a very loving and a very kind and very supportive household. I've never not felt supported by my family at all. I've never felt like my family's ever been disappointed in me. And that's been invaluable in taking risks and doing stuff comedically. And it's also made me a more forgiving person. And so I guess I'm thankful for having grace and forgiveness for other people. And I'm also very thankful that in my life, there's been a lot of people that have had grace and forgiveness for me. And I think that that's the only way we can continue to move forward as a society, is realize that hey, if somebody does something really messed up and wrong and it was a mistake or an accident and they're trying and they change, it's probably best to let them change and not hold them accountable forever. So that's kind of the thing I'm most thankful for. And I think that purely comes from my family and growing up in the background that I grew up in. I was very blessed and very lucky. And I know that.
Yeah.
So
That's so sweet.
We can't make fun of that.
yeah, try.
God damn it. I did
try,
think you were
look
going
like
to
a
answer
bad
that.
person.
Yeah. All right, Tom,
Oh,
what are you
God.
thankful for? Tom's like, dick.
Yeah. Oh my God. How did you know I was going to say that?
It's
That's what I thought you were
Dicksgiving,
gonna
dude.
Yeah, Dick's giving.
Thanksgiving.
Or Dick's taking, depending.
Ooh, thanks, dicking.
Stuffing.
Yeah,
Dick's
stuff.
sticking.
Yeah, stuffing turkey Tom.
Yeah. That's, yeah.
I don't
Making
wanna-
my
I don't-
parents so proud.
Yeah, get
No,
stuffed
don't worry,
with
they're
your
not
host,
watching this.
Tom.
Oh my God. No. That's funny. I got that question by picking it randomly from this, I guess, psychologist or behavioral therapist or something had developed a list of questions that are supposed to super connect people, and it's there's
Ooh.
only 36 total. But that was a good one.
That's a good question, though.
Yeah.
But I think questions like that are hard to make. You can make them funny, but when I get a question like that, I'm just don't be a dick, just answer it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't be an asshole. This person's trying to run a podcast. Don't be a piece of shit. don't make their job harder than it already is.
Yeah, no, I think I mean I randomize it when I ask people, but the person who designed it was this is I guess they had measured the questions and where they rated on some sort of predetermined intimacy scale. So it's supposed to get progressively more intense.
What's the most intimate
So hopefully
question?
people. Oh, let me bring it up.
Yeah, what's the most intimate one?
The most intimate one is gotta connect to my Wi-Fi.
Is this the list of questions that's supposed to force someone to fall in love with you? That was circulating.
There's a list of questions?
There was some experiment that scientists were
that
doing.
one. Yeah.
What?
It is that one.
Is that one?
That's so funny.
My secret goal of this podcast is actually just to
get another husband,
get my friends to fall in love with me. Just make more friends. So the last one's actually.
Sorry, I'm not enough for you, Tom.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm a quantity over quality kind of person.
Oh, okay.
I'm also introverted, so I don't want to have to put effort into it.
Well, that's fair.
So, yeah.
That's fair. This is a very non-threatening way to meet people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what better way to non-threateningly meet people than virtually? But so the last question is like not really a question, but you're supposed to share a personal problem and ask your partner's advice on how he or she might handle it. And then ask your partner to reflect back to you how you seem to be feeling about the problem you've chosen.
That's very intimate. That's
Yeah.
like that's
It's
a
also
big,
a two-parters, which is
Yeah,
kind of
that's
cheating.
risky.
But
that's
That's
risky.
like a job interview question.
Yeah, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What problems do you feel like you're?
yeah, say a coworker is causing problems. What actions do you take to address it? Blah, blah,
We
blah.
are.
Oh my god, I also feel like my brain is still like a little bit of that mentality since I just like kind of got out of the whole job interview process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're officially a librarian, right? That's the technical term, or what is it?
I think
That
Tom's
is the
technically
technical
a
term.
sexy librarian.
Yes, sexy. You're
That's
a
the
lusty
official
librarian.
We call it adult services.
Yeah.
You gotta get glasses and take them off and like shake your hair,
Yeah.
like yeah.
Get glasses just to take them off.
Yeah, it's a library.
Yeah, I'll lend you mine.
Yeah, it's just a library of erotic literature. That's all he has. The entire,
God.
entire library.
It's been so weird being, you know, in a county now that's like the services feel so limited to what a normal library is supposed to be.
Where are you now? Are you in Virginia? Are you in Maryland? Like, where are you?
I'm in Maryland. Well, I still
Okay.
live in Virginia though, but
Okay. Are you still in Arlington, that area?
I am in Alexandria. I
Okay.
used to work for Arlington though.
Okay.
I'm gonna miss those people.
So
But
what
yeah,
does your library not have? Like,
well,
what
it's just so
no books.
out of them. All of them are contaminated.
Yeah,
No,
we just have covers.
Are you sure you don't want to just wait 3 days? No, burn them. All the
Yeah.
books. And that's the clip they're going to use in my indictment. But no, it's just like I'm comparing it to how I normally see the library, and like I guess contrary to popular belief, as somebody who works at libraries, I see them as very active places. I see them as like community centers, and I think part of that is also because I have worked in a lot of counties that are very like population dense.
Okay.
So a lot of the, even like during the daytime, retirees, patrons experiencing homelessness, the families, like young families who are like taking their kids to story time. Like there's always something happening in the library. And right now on our appointment system, it is like
dead.
We're currently permitting one appointment 4 days a week. It's like Monday through Thursday, and there's only 10 people allotted. And when everybody comes in, we have to take them through like a whole spiel about their masks and social distancing. I mean, it's not fun, but it's just like, I don't know. I got like weirdly emotional when I was like finding a book on a shelf for somebody. It was just like, I love helping people.
I didn't realize how. I've never spent a ton of time in libraries. So like, like the most time I've spent is like when I first got out of college. I went to the local library because I moved back home to my mom's and she didn't have internet, and I would just go there to use internet and write all day. So like that's what I would do. I would drive 25 minutes and just sit in the library for hours and doing that. But it was a really small library. Like the only thing that they had was books and the internet. Like that was it. But then like when I started teaching in Richmond and we would take our kids to the library, there's like some of these libraries have everything. Like it's insane. Like there was like one that like had like if you were like had a library card or whatever for that county, you could like use. They had podcast equipment, which was like so fascinating to me. Like they had a room to do podcasts in. Like they obviously had the DVDs and stuff too, but like there's all these community engagement things that I wasn't aware libraries were doing because of my super small tiny one that was the only one like I had any experience with. So I thought that was fascinating. That it's like, oh, it's so high tech now.
Yeah, and it's kind of like they've like morphed into. I mean, because with the falling of print media, like I feel like a lot of libraries have kind of tried to repurpose themselves to survive. I mean, I know like here in Baltimore, I worked for a nonprofit that funded libraries in the schools because a lot of kids that are food insecure go to the schools during the summertime for food. So they go for like breakfast and lunch. So they also turn the library into a resource for the kids with like tablets, and they made sure everyone had
That's
air
awesome.
conditioning, and like there were computers for the parents so the parents could go online if they needed to. And it was like they really harnessed the change from print media and turned it into a community resource, which was
That's
really
pretty cool. It's
Yeah.
one
Well,
that
yeah,
evolved and
and
changed.
that's like that's part of it too, is that like the library's like mission in like a very broad stroke is like to adapt to the community's needs. So I actually worked at a library that had like a sound booth with like all the like fancy equipment and stuff. And actually a big thing during the pandemic that I've seen a couple different counties do is the having mobile hotspots available for checkout and like
Yeah,
Chromebooks
that's really
and
cool.
stuff, so that
That's
people
awesome.
can still get to the library's electronic resources, even though they don't have those resources at home necessarily. But yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
weirdly have like mostly experience in maker spaces, because I guess of where I've happened to land jobs. And that's like
awesome,
things
though.
that I didn't know where you would find anywhere. Like I didn't know what a 3D printer was before I encountered one at a library, and it was
That's crazy.
weird.
That they had
And I
that
made
in the
lots
library.
of like little plastic giraffes with it.
So I know we only
There's
have
a
a few
shelf.
minutes left, so I want to ask this question because I was interested.
I'm straight. That's usually what the question is.
Oh, okay. Well, cool, I guess.
Not a
But so I know you're joking a lot about death and about like things that are kind of taboo. Have you ever had like negative feedback from someone?
Absolutely.
Really?
Especially when I'm working jokes out, and the negative feedback is more like just people saying like, I don't think that topic's funny. And it's not people being mean about it, just people literally being like, I don't see the humor in this situation, but they're not mad at me. I'm luckily, like, I'm at a point now where like when I write a joke, if someone is offended or upset by it, 99 times out of 100, it's because they don't understand it. Like,
Okay.
it's so like, I'm at a point now where it's like just the way that I construct them, and like I run them by people that I respect that are parts of those communities. Like I have some jokes about gay people, about trans people, about people of different religions. And I always make sure like, hey, this is the point that I'm trying to convey. Is that point coming across, or is it seem like it's coming from like a hateful place? Because that's never like the plan. It's just like, I want to, talk about this stuff that's like actually funny, but in a respectful way. And death is no different. There's definitely been people that it's usually people that have just had someone pass away. So they might just be so overcome with emotion that the negative feedback is them being like, I thought it was really funny, but I had to leave because you were also making me cry.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. So usually like the way that I would do those sets is like when I was working those jokes out is I would save it for the very end of my set if I was doing like a longer set. And I would be like, hey, remember how much fun we had for the first 45 minutes? Are you guys cool if I work out this new material about my dad passing away? And they would say yes. And even if they didn't enjoy it, because I had given them that preface of like, this is the end of the regular show. Did we have fun? And they make a bunch of noise. And it's like, now I'm going to give you extra stuff and you either like it or you don't. But the positive has far outweighed the negative. Like I've helped more people and more people have laughed about it, or it's bad than I've had people that are just like, I don't like this or I don't think it's funny. And those people are usually also kind of drunk. So
yeah. It's interesting because I guess it's kind of like, for lack of a better term, like gallows humor.
Yeah.
So I used to work in a nonprofit legal clinic for women that were trying to get protection from domestic violence. And like some of the jokes that we fucking told were horrible. Like I would come home from work with like a story that I thought was funny and tell it to a friend. My friend would just be horrified the whole time.
Yeah.
But it's like humor as a coping mechanism is something we should really recognize. Like,
yeah,
if I was doing an intake with a woman and she was telling me all these horrible things, there'd be an odd detail. And if I'd be off the call and just feeling it, I would just like go into a coworker's office and start telling jokes about the weird detail.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting coping mechanism to kind of, in some ways, dull the pain of horror or grief or all these negative emotions that are going on.
Almost every time I've had someone or seen someone, whether they're talking about my jokes or someone else's jokes, have an issue with the topic that's being talked about, it's almost exclusively someone that's not a part of that group or hasn't experienced it before. And it's one of the most, like, because there's something where, like, I taught at a school for autism, and I made a rule that I would talk about my students because I think that they're just like typically developing kids. You can talk about anybody. The jokes were never, oh, they have autism. The jokes are like, these are funny stories that my kids did, but hey, they're also like, let's humanize them. They also have autism. And I've had someone come up to me and say something afterwards. She's like, you can't say that. And I'm like, do you work with anyone that has autism? They're like, no. I was like, do you know anyone that has autism? They said, no. And I said, well, I spend 40 hours a week the last 4 years with these kids. You can go fuck yourself. Like, you don't do anything for these communities. You don't get to, if I have a coping mechanism to deal with what can be a very difficult situation to deal with, and you're just saying something because you're trying to white knight or virtue signal, but you have no invested interest in those communities, I think you're the worst type of person. And those people, I think, are incredibly frustrating to have to talk to and deal with because they don't get it. They just don't understand. And it's very frustrating.
Yeah, no, I think, a couple good points made as far as, like, comedy is a coping mechanism, but you also do have to, like, keep in mind, like, being respectful about it because you may just be doing it for yourself and, like, as a coping mechanism, but it's also still just anytime
it's still a show
are put in a situation where, well, anytime you're put in a situation where, like, other people have to listen to you, it's a position of power, so you have to be responsible with that, as Spider-Man somewhere said. But that being said, we're pretty much done, but I want to give you the chance, Winston, real quick, if you want to plug any stuff.
Yeah, I mean, watch my special, Grieving Productively. Follow me at Winston H Comedy on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I'll probably start posting stuff on that. And if you can't remember all that, literally links to everything is on winstonhodges.com. So other than that, please check me out. I got some shows coming up online. They'll be fun.
Woo! Yay! All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks
Winston.
for having me.
Yeah, it's a good time. We'll be doing this again next week on Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have a Toronto comedian, Desiree Walsh, who I fucking love.
Yeah, she's great. I love Desiree.
Oh, my God. I mean, Winston's okay, too, but...
I like Desiree, too, so it's okay.
Awesome. So definitely tune in next time for that. And we got, like, 3 comments during this episode, so I'm just gonna log off of this. I'm gonna be like, oh my God, like,
enjoy it.
Maybe 10 people viewed it this time.
Okay, yeah, well,
that's a Hodges bump right there.
That is the Hodges bump. That's the classic Hodges draw. That's what you got.
Right. People.
Well, happy Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, and happy Thanksgiving.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
That's tomorrow.
Eat them turkeys, duckins, all that stuff. All right. End of podcast streaming thing. Goodbye.
Good night, all 3 listeners.
All 3. Do.